Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of In Defense Of. And this is a very special episode. I'm, of course, joined by Aaron. And today, we are talking about 2019's Amazon Prime series called The Boys.
People love superheroes. They swoop out of the sky to save the day. People love that cozy feeling that superheroes give them. Supes lose hundreds of people each year to collateral damage. It's f***ing diabolical.
They're all like that? All of them?
Yeah, pardon my French, those f***ers. I've got the boys together. Join us.
To do what?
Spank the bastards. For Robin.
I'm in.
Now, before we dive into today's episode, I just wanted to do a quick parental guidance disclaimer because this series is very mature. It's very, we mentioned last episode, it's very vulgar, a lot of adult themes and a lot of explicit adult content. So if you listen to your podcast with the young ones around, or if this is something that you don't want to know about, we just wanted to do this disclaimer so that we don't really have to sidestep around some of the more interesting and crazy stuff. So that being said, let's jump right in. Aaron.
Yes.
So this is a bit of a departure episode for us because we typically watch terrible films and find redeeming qualities in them.
Yeah.
The Boys is neither a movie nor is it terrible. So, so why are we talking about it?
Well, I think that we both just really enjoyed the series as a whole, but it just goes so much further than that. Like, we were talking about state of Hollywood and how things are, like, where the movie industry is going, and with like superheroes and things like that. And then this show kind of, I don't know if you want to say made light of those types of issues. Yeah, and so it made light of a lot of issues that are kind of going on in the world here, and it had a lot of like symbolism and and then not to mention there was just so much fan service that went on in this show. Like if you like comic books, doesn't matter whether it's Marvel, DC, there was something in it for everyone that just is a fan of that comic book genre. Yeah, I don't know. What would you say? Well,
it's this was quite a journey because when I first started watching this show, I watched like the first 2 episodes, and I remember telling you like it was a bit, I wasn't sure if I was going to finish it at first because it was super dark and kind of mean-spirited, and typically I don't like, it was really kind of gross, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to watch this, but I was so taken by the characters and so invested in the journey, and Carl Urban is so incredibly entertaining in this series.
Yeah, he is.
Go ahead, Seth, give him the stick.
You back off, or I'll shove this stick where your dick used to be. You're a bunch of pathetic soup-worshipping c***s. I bet you'd f*** a soup if they shat on your mum's best china. Did it ever occur to you that they split your spine or broke your dick just for a laugh? Where's your f***ing rage? Your self-respect? Sitting here in your little share circle, having a little whinge and a moan? Letting go. You should be out there with a fucking chainsaw going after him. Just a bunch of scared rabbits. Suits are all the same, every fucking one of them.
He's, sorry.
I ended up finishing it, but then further, I found that the backstory behind this was so rich and entertaining, and where this series actually came from was super fascinating. But I feel like the conversation goes so much further than that because, Aaron, when we did our Last Airbender series, we talked about adaptations, right?
Yeah.
And kind of the key thing, the cornerstone I think that we touched on was characterizations, because like The Last Airbender totally blew characterizations, like just like, completely flopped on it from what you were explaining, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is to talk about The Boys as kind of a follow-up in our adaptations conversation, is that The Boys elevates the source material characterization. And that was something I wanted to touch on, because when we talk about adaptations, I feel like there's a lot to say. But what's interesting in The Boys, as we'll get into it, is like there's characters in this series that are hugely developed that had maybe one or two panels in the actual comic series. So I feel like talking about this series in terms of the overall arc of our show is very fitting for the kind of things we've been talking about lately. Yeah.
And so we should probably do a disclaimer for any of those who haven't seen the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we jump into it, turn this episode off. Go watch the Boys, and then come back and listen to it. But for those of you who have watched it, you're in for a treat.
Yeah, because I'm not sure how many people have really sunk their teeth into the backstory of this series and really recognize. Basically, what I would like to accomplish with this episode is to just like broaden your appreciation of it. Yeah. So to qualify what we're going to talk about, Aaron, you and I both did our homework on this one, but you how far into the actual like comic book series are you?
So I didn't quite finish volume 1, but I am like maybe one comic book volume booklet. I don't know how it works, but away from finishing volume 1.
Oh, of like the very first. Okay,
Yeah,
I see.
yeah.
Gotcha. I got about 4 issues in, and then kind of felt like I needed a shower and a long walk. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start with the comic, because that sets up everything else. So this comic ran from 2006 to, there was 72 issues, and it was a monthly series. It was created by Garth Ennis, and co-created by Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson. And Derek Robertson was the artist. Now, it was published by Wildstorm, which was an imprint of DC Comics, but it only lasted 6 issues before it was canceled and moved over to Dynamite Entertainment for the rest of its run. It's interesting. Wildstorm ended up shutting down in 2010 so that DC could do the New 52 reboot of all of its heroes. So they kind of cleaned house and then launched the New 52. But I think they're back. I'm pretty sure Wildstorm's back around now. Garth Ennis is he's famous for subverting superhero tropes. He's written a lot of different runs, won a lot of awards. He's famous for the Preacher series, which is also an adaptation series. Aaron, have you watched any Preacher?
No, I haven't.
Neither have I. I'm not sure if it's any good or not, but he also did Vertigo. He did a run with Judge Dredd, Punisher, and Hellblazer as well. He's a very collaborative guy. It's funny because he's Irish, right? So he famously doesn't like westernized like superheroes. He thinks they're boring.
Well, I lived in a small town outside Belfast in Northern Ireland, and the distribution was such that all we got were the mainstream British titles. We didn't even get the British reprints of the Marvel books. We certainly didn't get the original Marvel and DC books, which would show up in British stores occasionally. I'm talking here in the days before comic shops, of course. I'm talking about corner stores.
Pharmacies,
exactly.
things like that.
So I had almost no experience of American comics at all. And when I did see them, they didn't compare favorably with what I was reading. 2000 AD, another comic called Action, another one, a war comic called Battle. These were British weekly anthologies. They featured a lot of very straightforward bare bones storytelling. Judge Dredd is, of course, the best example. A character who was conceived as a future cop who would shoot people for dropping litter if it came to it.
Shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah. Anytime he can turn a superhero trope on its head, that's typically what he does. Typically his work is super gritty, super mature, really graphic, and explores themes that I don't know who else really had the balls to explore some of the stuff he was exploring at the time.
Yeah, a true pioneer.
Yeah, exactly. And but his stories, he was always focused on story.
When I saw, and I did occasionally see things like Batman and Spider-Man, I just didn't see the point of them at all. Next to something like Judge Dredd, I saw what I think of as a kind of Stan Lee storytelling, where a fight will go on over several pages, coming off more like a dance than anything else, in which these characters will exchange reams of dialogue. They'll cover the page in dialogue while hitting each other. And in comparison to what I was reading, that just didn't work for me.
So there was an element of realism to him where the emphasis wasn't so much on the violence or the fighting, but more so on the story building, the characterizations, and exploring some really, really intense themes.
Yeah.
So the comic was canceled by Wildstorm after 6 issues. And I can't remember what he said. I think he was talking about Preacher, where he said that a lot of the higher ups at these publishing houses didn't actually like read the comics. So he was like getting away with murder until I think one of them actually read one of the issues and thought, oh my God, like what are we publishing? And then, what are we doing here? So fast forward to 2019 and this series comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and so the series is developed by Eric Kripke, and then Seth Rogen is a producer on it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then Evan Goldberg is also a producer / writer on it.
Yeah, and something that's so rad about this series, which I also feel like is kind of unique, is all 8 episodes of this first season were directed by different people.
Yeah.
Which is super cool.
Yeah, and like you wouldn't know the way that the episodes are filmed. Like they all flow perfectly together.
Yeah, and I find that so interesting because Garth Ennis was so collaborative. He always was collaborating with the artists, and it's so neat to see this series come together where it has this cohesive flow, and the focus is almost entirely on characterization. But it's all different directors, all with a slightly different voice. Now, in terms of tone, like The Boys is rated TV mature. It's got everything. It's got graphic nudity, blood, gore, you name it, swearing.
Yeah.
But even so, there's so much stuff from the comics that literally was unfilmable, like didn't make the cut into the series. Aaron, as someone who because you went a lot further with the comics than I did, could you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so in the comics, like it's absolutely insane. Like Butcher is just off the walls, like insane. It's like the director of the CIA. He like goes to meet with her and just like ends up having sex with her like every time he goes to see her, and he like sees her like every single time. And in the comic books, it's so like grotesque too, because he like walks in and it shows a shot of like behind her sitting at her desk, and it's from behind her, and you clearly see a picture of her and her family and like a husband, and then the next scene is just them like banging.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, that's just like a taste of what some of these scenes are.
Yeah, there's this one scene in the comics where Huey is looking through kind of like binoculars at this brothel house, and the different heroes they're basically tag teaming like room to room, these different rooms where these like prostitutes are in.
Oh yeah.
And they're like swapping back and forth. Like Butcher is doing this commentary through the whole thing about how brutal it is and what these girls are having to endure. Oh man, it's rough. That's rough stuff. So let's, Aaron, can you kind of like I'm sure anyone listening to this has probably seen the series, but to set up kind of the rest of what we're talking about, could you kind of like give me the plot?
So since I'll go more off of where the show went rather than the comic book, since we're kind of talking about the show.
Yeah, for sure.
And so the way it starts out is Huey, who is played by Jack Quaid. He is he's kind of like a timid, bumbling kind of guy, right? Like just a pushover, like overly nice guy. And he has this girlfriend who just seems like she's amazing, helps him come out of his shell. Just is like really there for him and helps him encourage. And they're having this really sweet scene, and then all of a sudden the A train just like runs right through her, and Huey is just left standing there with her hands in his hands, basically.
Yeah, just obliterates her like into pink mist.
Oh yeah, completely just everywhere.
Yeah.
All that was left were her hands.
Yeah.
And so Vought is like the kind of the bad guys, like the bad corporation that controls the soups, and not controls, but kind of pays them and like directs them where to go. And what you find out is that the superheroes are not like your comic book, like not like your Spider-Man, Batman, or Avengers or anything like that, but they are celebrities with like superpowers who are more concerned about their social status than they are of actually saving people's lives. Yeah. And so what you find out is Carl Urban comes to visit Huey. Carl Urban is obviously Billy Butcher.
Billy Butcher.
He comes to visit him and recruit him to be on his team so that they can obviously like avenge his girlfriend. Yeah. And so he finally recruits Huey to be on the team, and then they go and they get the Frenchie, who's played by Tomer Capone. Capone? Yeah. And they somehow because he gets attacked by a soup called Translucent, who has the ability to turn invisible and has like carbon fiber skin or something like that, like indestructible skin.
Yes.
And they managed to capture him, and they're trying to kill him basically after that because
they're trying to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the beginning scene, and then from there on it becomes they also involve this other guy named Mother's Milk, played by Laz Alonso.
Yes.
They find they find another girl that they call the Female, and she has superpowers, and her name is
Female of the species.
Yeah. Her name is Karen Fukuhara. Fukuhara. And then, so it's kind of, they are considered the boys. And so it's like them versus the Seven, which the Seven is kind of a play on Justice League. Because I think there was like an original Seven in the Justice League, right?
Yeah, this show it really like barely tries to mask the fact that it's a parody of like the Justice League, you know?
Yeah, and so it's them versus the Seven, and it just kind of goes back and forth through what's going on through everyone's lives and why like the boys are, what happened in their lives and why they're going after them. But it also explores the soup side and like what they've been through and, and everything they're kind of going through. And you find out that this company Vought is actually creating soups with this drug called Compound V. Mm-hmm. They give it to babies, and I guess they develop superpowers. And so what was happening is they would they realized that they couldn't give babies superpowers in a like laboratory setting because they don't like grow up with the right morals either, because I believe Homelander was kind of brought up that way, like in the laboratory. Homelander, who is played by Anthony Starr. Yeah. Yeah, and so he was kind of brought up in a lab, and he just has like this real like weird mother issues, I guess it is. Like there's an actual term for it. Do you know what it is?
Is it like a dependency thing? Or?
Yeah. Like it's something like you treat like a grown woman like your mother kind of thing. Like it's some kind of from like lack of having a mother. There's it's like an actual like mental disability that I think people can have. I can't remember what it's called. But he has that with the VP of Vought, who is Madeline Sitwell, played by Elizabeth Shue.
Yes, yeah.
And so they kind of got this like weird mother-son sexual like relationship going on.
Yeah, it's really uncomfortable in a few places, yeah.
Yeah, and we should probably Starlight. Starlight is the other soup that's like kind of you really need to know who that is. She is played by Erin Moriarty.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a really interesting character because she's like that Bible Belt Southern kind of like grew up in going to pageants and all that sort of stuff. So she was kind of like
she's really idealistic and
and like a little idealistic and like a bit naive at the same time.
Oh, very naive, yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
And so she just kind of thinks that she is just going to walk right in there and start saving people and like instantly make an impact of how impact in the world and saving people's lives. But when she gets to Vought, she realizes it's like people are very vain and they actually don't care about saving people's lives whatsoever. And and like the first scene in the show, she gets welcomed in by the Deep, who is played by Chase Crawford, sorry. And he kind of like welcomes her and somehow convinces her, basically kind of blackmails her into giving him a blowjob in order to join the join the Seven. And he kind of just plays it off like he's a big deal, like he's number 2, and if he doesn't do it, that she's
rough stuff.
Yeah, honestly though, okay, I just need to say this. He probably ended up being one of my favorite characters throughout this series because you just feel so sorry for him at the end of it.
Well, he definitely gets his due for sure. But Aaron, even this scene, sorry, not to derail, but like even that scene plays out very differently in the comic as well. Yeah. So in the comic books, she shows up and it's Homelander that tells her to give him a blowjob, and then A-Train and I think Black Noir show up, and it's not very good. No. So basically, anything that you think is like rough in this TV series, like times it by like 20 or 30, and that's actually what happens in the comic series. Like, it's rough stuff for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's also worth mentioning too, like the cast of this show is huge. Like there's so many people in the series.
And they do such a good job of like screen time and splitting it up between people, and
it's unbelievable. For an 8-episode long series, the amount of character building between this big of a cast is unbelievable.
Yeah. And the other thing that's insane is Carl Urban just does a fantastic job as Billy Butcher.
Oh yeah, he made this show for me. He's honestly the reason I kept watching it.
That is a move. Come on, even you got to agree with me.
Hey, please.
We should lob a nuke at him.
Sir,
get it over and done with. You know what I'm saying?
We're sorry, sir. We apologize. My man.
All right, good talk. Think about it. I'm here all day, all right?
It's neat. There's a couple of fan servicey things I just want to get out of the way because they're kind of cool. Carl Urban famously played Judge Dredd, which is a super underrated film. Definitely not enough people watched it, but it's cool. Like he played Judge Dredd, and Garth Ennis, he really loves Judge Dredd, and in fact, he stopped writing for Judge Dredd the comic because he didn't want to. He enjoyed it too much to want to mess with the character of it because like he felt like if he was too close to the material, he might not do it justice. So it's really sweet that Carl Urban was cast in kind of this lead role, having played Judge Dredd, which is neat because it's renewed calls for him to play Judge Dredd again. It's renewed calls to push for a series, so that's rad, and I hope that happens. The other fan service thing is that in the comics, the character of Huey Campbell his character design, the way he looks, was directly modeled after Simon Pegg. Mm-hmm. And what's rad in this series is Simon Pegg plays Huey Campbell's dad, which is neat because it's kind of a throwaway character, at least in this season. So anybody could have played his dad truthfully, but it's rad that it's the fan service of the character he was based on.
Yeah.
So having digested a bit of the comic series, it was really neat to see how much love and attention really went into this series.
If you don't have that childhood affection for these characters, they'll mean nothing to you. You encounter them as an adult, which I did sort of in my late teens, and you'll come at them from a completely different angle. They'll mean either nothing or all you'll be able to do is see the funny side, the ridiculous side.
One of the things that jumped out to me right away was the bravery and the risk-taking element of launching this series. We're on the cusp of like the stream wars, for lack of a better term. All these different streaming services are literally all about to drop in like a month or two here. Everything from Disney Plus to, I don't know, just there's so many. So I started thinking about this show in terms of like identity building, because I think one of the reasons like Disney Plus is going to succeed so well is because it has an identity. Everyone knows what Disney more or less is and knows what their properties are by now.
Yeah.
So I started thinking about this show in terms of Amazon's overall identity for their streaming service. Because they really struck gold with this series, and obviously they're already filming or putting the finishing touches on season 2, like right now.
Yeah.
So I started wondering if like this series, because it is so raw and so mature, I was almost wondering if Amazon would like really lean into that and make their streaming service more of like the punk rock of streaming services, you know, where like all the gritty, icky kind of stuff ends up.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Netflix is losing its identity, and with it, a lot of subscribers, like in the millions at this point, I think, are slowly starting to get a little tired with like second-rate original content and losing shows that they liked and things like that. So I wanted to get your opinion on this, Aaron. Do you think that Amazon's gonna this is just gonna be like, do you think this is enough of a splash for them to kind of like build an identity around, or do you think this is kind of a flash in the pan thing?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, like, look at what I think you're absolutely right in the identity that Amazon is creating for itself. Look at the shows that it already has, like what is it, The Man in the High Castle, which is like another spin on whether like if the Nazis would have won, you know. And then they redid the Tick Show, and I've never watched the Tick Show, but I always remember people telling me that it is like very it's like an adult show, right?
Yeah, subversive.
Yeah, and then everything else, like they have Preacher on there, which is like, you know, kind of moody, deals with demons and all that sort of stuff. And then there's God and Omens, I think, and what's that other one?
Oh, they have The Expanse now too, don't they?
Yeah. And so like they're definitely getting into that kind of like almost darker kind of series. I'm really curious what they're going to do with the Lord of the Rings series when that comes out. So I think, like I would definitely agree with you. I would say that Netflix is just casts the widest net. And they just kind of are like in everything, and which is like almost oversaturation of content.
Right, that's the thing. Like I feel like identity is playing a bigger part in these streaming services than people even realize. And I think over time, as all these streaming wars ebb and flow and services come and go over the next 2 years, my prediction is that it's going to be the streaming services that establish the strongest identity that stick around. For instance, take a streaming service like Shudder. Shudder's not something that really appeals to me, but basically it only does horror movies. But it's categorizes them like, do you want psychological, monster flicks, B-rate, this and that. But like that, plain and simple, is Identity. And we just saw a trailer. I sent you a trailer just the other day about some wacky looking show set to music. What was it called? Like Blood Machines or something?
Yeah,
That looked
Blood
wild.
Machines.
Yeah, and I think that is a Shudder exclusive. So
Wow.
I think the shows, it's going to be really interesting to see where Amazon goes with this Identity, because this really messes with my head, Aaron, because I feel like Lord of the Rings is so widely appealing. But don't you feel like if they're going like punk rock and going like really gritty and subversive with their content, don't you kind of feel like, A, this might mean that this Lord of the Rings series is totally not going to be what we expect, or B, that it's like going to leave a lot of people out in the cold?
Oh yeah, I have no idea. Like for myself, I'm very cautiously like optimistic about it, and I'm a bit nervous because I don't know if they're gonna be able to turn that show into like whatever it's planning, because they have, what is it, like $1 billion budget or something like that? Like,
Yeah.
it's like some insane show, like budget, where there's no excuse for like why the show should bomb.
See, because streaming services, they'll always go where the viewers are, right? So it just made me wonder, like, is this Lord of the Rings series going to look anything like what we expect? Like, or is it going to be dark and gritty, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, like I have no idea, because the way I see it right now is it can go anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. It's worth thinking about. Amazon Prime as a streaming service, I feel like is still in its infancy. Like there's a lot of movies on there, but I feel like The Boys sets this interesting precedent, and it's going to be interesting to see whether Amazon leans into that or if they try to paint a wide, cast a wide net.
Yeah. Oh, they also have what's that show? Hannah and the Jack Ryan series, like the Tom Clancy. Is it Jack Ryan or Jack Reacher? No,
Jack Ryan.
Jack Ryan. Jack Reacher is like a Tom Cruise character, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
A bit of a segue there, but it's worth thinking about, and I really want people to keep an eye on this as streaming services move forward. Because even Apple, they have their new streaming service about to launch, and Apple's doing a funny thing where they're basically like including a membership to their streaming service with like their new iPhone or something, which is a neat way of them kind of like roping in an audience. They're starting their memberships really low, and it seems like Apple, in classic Apple fashion, is going for like the human interest variety in their content, which is great. Like there's an audience for that as well. But again, the focus seems to be on identity and brand, like identity and brand. So yeah, man, I calling it now. Like in a year from now, we're gonna see who's got the strongest focus on identity and brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, switching back to The Boys specifically, Aaron, let's get into some of the themes of this show, because there's a lot of cool stuff here.
Yeah. Okay, so the very first one is probably the most like obvious, and that is that VOD is probably, would you put them as Marvel or would you put them as like Disney?
Well, it's funny because when this was written, it would have been more of like DC. But modern day and age, interpreting the series, I would definitely say more of Disney.
Yeah. So if you think about Disney, how Disney owns Marvel, Disney now owns like what, parts of Fox or all of Fox?
I think all of 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, and then not to mention Pixar. Then they have their own Disney studios.
ESPN.
Owns Star Wars, like Lucasfilms, Indiana Jones, Aliens now too.
Oh yeah.
They own so much stuff, and they're and so that's kind of like VOD in this, where they're like manipulating the superheroes to bring in more money. And so if you think of Disney and then like the studios that they own that they're manipulating to like make them more money. Take this whole Spider-Man leaving the MCU thing that just went on.
Yeah.
And it was just what an insane like couple of days that was, where people, it was just so stupid because Disney has so much friggin' money, right? Like so much money.
Yeah.
And if they want, it wasn't anything to do with money. Like, cause like Disney can afford to pay like whatever they want. And and so it was just literally like, no, like we're Marvel Studios, like you should be letting us use this character for a deal that works in our favor, like it, you know?
Yeah.
And like, so all these people are upset, like tearing apart Sony, like making memes that, Spider-Man is going down the drain and things. And it's just like everyone's defending Disney. And I think there was even a like tweet made by Jeremy Renner that was like, think about Stan Lee, like, just completely manipulating people into being on the side of like, I don't even know what he was trying to accomplish there, like being on Disney's side to like turn social media against Sony. Like, it's just so weird, right? And
and this is coming from a podcast that frequently rips on Sony.
yeah. And, like it's just so insane.
Yeah,
and
it's insane.
And like that's what this show reminded me of. Like, you have these celebrity superheroes that are just like terrible people who will do anything to make sure that they get money. And it really seems like there's a lot of that going on. I mean,
did it not seem like Disney manufactured a crisis, like kind of like Vought manufactures crises for their heroes? Oh man, that really hit me. And then like a couple weeks later at D23, Disney announces like a Spider-Man ride at their new like Marvel Avengers campus land in Disney California Adventure. And I was like because these rights are so sticky, because a company might not have movie rights, but they'll have theme park rights, because theme park rights are exclusive of movies and stuff. So yeah, people are going to be going to Avengers Campus next year. Presumably they're going to see they're going to see Tom Holland's Spider-Man swinging around, but he won't actually be part of the cinematic universe anymore. So all of this stuff is so weird.
One more thing is, like, I think after this whole Jeremy Renner thing, Stan Lee's daughter actually like reached out and was like, just talking about how after Stan Lee passed away, that Disney never like reached out to her, never said anything.
Reach out.
Yeah, never said like sorry for your loss or anything like that. And it's just so weird, because here's this guy, Jeremy Renner, like sending out this like mass tweet and like manipulating people, when like Disney is just stirring the pot behind the scenes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and I really enjoy the movies, and I love seeing him interact with the rest of the heroes. And in a perfect world, it'd be nice if everyone played nice, and everyone could be in the same movies as each other. But at the end of the day, like, Sony's held these rights for like a decade now, at least, and it's so easy to get lost in the social media firestorm of everything that you kind of forget you're dealing with this corporation, Yeah.
Oh, what's that other thing? There's like the law on how long you can like hold the like rights to a character. And
yes.
And so I think it was like 20 something years, or do you know the years?
I don't, but there's a couple different laws I'm aware of. There's the one that you have to renew the rights after a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And in cinematic rights, there's a law of how long of a period of time can go by before you actually use those rights to make a movie with it. Mm-hmm. It's that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say that. So basically, what happened with Disney is that they pushed for these laws to be extended, And so they could have ended up owning the rights to Spider-Man, but because they got greedy and wanted to like keep the rights to so many other things, they like extended it. So I think in this last year, the rights to Spider-Man would have came up, but because they pushed to extend it, now it's like I think another like 10 years before the rights of Spider-Man can be like that like Sony will lose them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man. I just wish Sony made higher quality films. You know, that would, this whole thing is only an issue because people don't trust Sony films.
Yeah.
You know, if they were hitting home runs all the time, everyone wouldn't really mind. Like this kind of stuff goes on every day in Hollywood, but the fact is, it's this. I mean, the timing is just so messed up because you just had Far From Home come out, Avengers, you know, Endgame kind of put a bow on a series of films, and now Phase 4 is starting to roll out, and everyone's wondering who they're gonna like cling to next because this whole batch of heroes is kind of sidelined now or have hung up the cape. So yeah, this is so interesting because when you look at The Boys, what's neat to me, Aaron, is The Boys comic came around subverting superhero tropes at a time where superheroes were getting played out. Like before DC did their New 52 reboot, things were getting pretty wacky, you know? Everyone's storylines had kind of gotten away on them, and it was kind of this muck and this mire, and it was like, okay, you know what? It's time to clean house. But here was this wild Irish guy, Garth Ennis, who wrote this subversive storyline and basically took a piss on what DC was doing and the big mess they were making, right? Yeah. So he writes this whole storyline about subversion and how superheroes are actually super flawed people and they're psychopaths and they're sociopaths and they're murderers and they get away with all this stuff. Fast forward like over a decade later to 2019. Now this series comes along and is doing the exact same thing in a time where superheroes are everywhere and things are getting a little wacky and we're wondering where the storylines are going to go and things are kind of being rebooted. It's crazy. It's like mirroring the exact climate of when this book came out. But the thing is now mainstream knows about this rift, because back then it was only comic book fans that were really paying attention to that. Yeah. But now everyone's on social media. Suddenly everyone needs to know about who Spider-Man belongs to. Now you see a series like The Boys where it's almost like Disney is Vought and Amazon is The Boys. It's so like, it's so wild to me. Like, that's why I feel like this show is worth talking about, because it, this flippin' comic like predicted the future of a cinematic universe that hadn't existed yet. And now we're in that cinematic universe, and The Boys is again saying, yeah, there's this whole corporation who's manufacturing these crises and you know, making superheroes corporate profits. It's so wild. Like just the, like, there's one way of looking at it, of course, where it's really cynical and it's really dark and broody and mean-spirited. But if you take a step back and look at it almost like a piece of music, I keep saying the word punk rock because that's just kind of like how it resonated with me. It's like the difference between listening to like Top 40 and listening to like the Sex Pistols or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just like, I keep feeling that vibe of like, yeah, you know what? Like, tear it all down. Yeah. And it's like, it's awesome too, because in the show, whenever they have like superhero team ups, like they say this thing like, everybody loves a team up. And it's totally a nod to Marvel movies, because like, it's so crazy because there's a formula that those movies carry. Now, when like the first Hulk came out, Iron Man came out, those kind of movies, you're like, whoa, like, wow, this is really awesome. This is so cool. Then like, you know, a few more come out and you're like, oh, like I start to see like a theme developing here. And then it's like more coming out and you're just kind of like, oh, like this isn't like, you've got it down to like a formula where you just kind of like pump out this movie and it just makes millions, you know? And then
and then you're going, wow, like that was such a successful movie. Let's do it again. And then you're pumping out the same thing like over again, and people are still eating it up and being like, and now they're starting to measure that success by how many dollars it brings in. But in all actuality, it's like nothing is original. Nothing is like, you're taking material and just like kind of changing it a little bit and adapting it to screen, but you're like, it's also like mundane, you know?
And this is how, what you're saying, that's exactly how Garth Ennis felt about the state of Western comic books when he decided to craft this crazy thing. That was his exact feelings. The problem is that we're all just catching up now.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, I've really enjoyed the Marvel movies. I think they're a ton of fun, especially like the most recent ones. Like Thor Ragnarok is just such a blast. Even if you don't like superhero movies, that movie's such a blast. So it's not to say that I hate those films. It's just to say that in the spirit and the realism of what is behind the curtain, this is so relevant right now. It's really fascinating stuff. One of the themes I wanted to touch on was religion, because I feel like so much of this film is satirical in nature towards a lot of faith and religion.
I suppose it comes from my fascination with religion and its effect on the world as a largely negative force. I grew up in a country that it was really cut in half by a religious division. Looking at the history of what Christianity in particular has done to the Western world over the centuries, it's a fascination. There's a degree of disgust there. It's something that's never going to go away from my work, I think, because these ideas seem to be so strong and they exert such an influence over so many. And on another level, you get some great toys to play with. You get demons and angels, and you get blasphemy.
Garth Ennis is he's an atheist, and religion plays a big part in pretty much all of his storylines that he writes, because it's kind of something he feels strongly about. In terms of, especially Christianity. He seems to hate Christianity, and he thinks that it has basically destroyed the Western world. It's funny, the more I talk about him, the more it sounds like he just hates like America, but I don't think that's the case. But so I wanted to touch on that a little bit in terms of this story. What's interesting is in The Boys, the world at large basically acknowledges, although the Christian community in this world acknowledges that the superheroes are a gift from God, that they're not specifically, like, they don't realize that they're manufactured. They basically, there's that one scene where Homelander and...
oh my gosh, that scene was like, gave me chills.
Yeah, describe this a little bit. This is crazy, this scene.
Okay, so they are in like definitely like a Bible state. I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was. And Starlight is there and Homelander is there, and they're kind of just doing like public appearances.
Yeah.
And there's this scene where Homelander starts giving this speech, and he just like, so what is her name? Madam Sitwell. She like basically like pre-writes all their speeches for them, and Homelander disagrees with it because he wants to be like he wants to come from Vought wants superheroes in the military. And so he's there to give a speech to convince people to vote on a bill to have superheroes in the military.
Some people, they want me to come out here and speak empty platitudes to you all. A little bit of corporate talk. But I don't want to do that. I can't do that. You want to know why?
Because I believe that what God wants me to do is get on over there, find the filthy bastards that masterminded this, whatever cave they're in, and introduce it to a little thing called God's judgment. That's what I think.
Sounds like the American thing to do. Sounds like the right thing to do.
But no. Apparently, I gotta wait for Congress to say it's okay. right? And I say, I answer to a higher law. Wasn't I chosen to save you? Is it not my God-given purpose to protect the United States of America? Shall rejoice when he sees the vengeance, and he will bathe his feet in the blood of the wicked.
Like, just completely, like, insane. And then at one point he, like, flies up and, like, raises his arms and, like, slowly descends into the crowd while they're all, like, have their arms up. Yeah, and, like, trying
to,
like,
a
touch
Renaissance
him.
painting. Ugh.
Oh, it's insane, and it makes you feel, like, icky.
Yeah, this whole series makes you feel icky at several, about a dozen, probably once an episode. There's like a scene that makes you feel icky. But this one really jumped out at me because there's a dozen different ways to look at it. I don't really want to tell people how to interpret it because everyone will have their own reaction to it. But it's satirizing politics, it's satirizing religion, and it's really, really wild stuff. Of course, you have Starlight, Annie January, who's up there, and she's supposed to be, you know, this young innocent hero, and she has her speech to do, right? But she ends up speaking her mind.
Here's the truth. Anyone who tells you they know the answers is lying. And I know, I'm supposed to be this hero, idol, symbol, whatever, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just as scared and confused as the rest of you. I'm done pretending. And I'm done taking any more shit.
So she gets up there and essentially finally speaks her mind because she's had enough of the machine that she's been through. And in a really powerful, really unnerving kind of speech. So... yeah, man.
It's really cool too because they like two kind of themes that you see emerge from Vought is corporation, like money, greed, business side, and then the second thing is religion. And so, from my understanding in the show, they're all kind of like religious, like the superheroes do believe in God, or at least they just say they do to manipulate that side of the crowd. And now, like, what's really interesting is like you see this in like everyday life. Like two of the major factors that go on in politics are like corporations and religion.
It's true. Yeah, it plays a major part. Yeah.
It's like it's so insane. Like you know, the like voting conservative or whatever, right? Like that is of religious parties, and like, you know, there's so many Christian people and they don't want to vote in anyone who's not like religious. So you have these like leaders who come up and say, yeah, like I'll like, and that was another thing too, is because like I think when this was made, I think it was the Eric Kremper. I was like listening to an interview that he did, and he says that like this is what if celebrities were involved in politics would look like. And I think he was referencing to like Donald Trump being the president and like a celebrity being the president in like politics. So not only are you getting that in the show, but it like exists in real life too, which is just absolutely like insane.
It's wild. I feel like Garth Ennis really wants, I think his big message was the separation of church and state.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, because like I was brought up in a Christian household. And I recognize these themes and what's become of like the Western church and how corporate and how it's run by, you know, these people that have made themselves like overlords of other people. And it felt like I was watching that play out in this context of what a celebrity politician really means and how their views can really shape how people feel about bigger issues that they don't maybe unpack. Maybe this sounds too political, but what's always crazy to me is when a famous public figure typically when they announce their viewpoint on an issue, it popularizes that viewpoint just because of their force of personality, not because people are fully educated in that issue.
Yeah.
And The Boys really leans into that hard with Homelander's, with Vought's agenda to get the superheroes into the military and to get that militaristic control over everything.
Yeah.
That's just so cool and so like Orwellian, you know? It's very crazy.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, just like what an insane show. I don't know how they managed to capture all this stuff and turn it into a script. And not only that, but take from a comic book and switch things up and also do it justice at the same time.
Yeah, but then also kind of know when to pump the brakes because there's so much stuff in the comics that is just unfilmable. Like, it's just too gnarly. And there was even ideas that they came up with independently that were also super gnarly that they didn't use. When they were doing a Reddit Ask Me Anything, and one of the ideas they mentioned was Homelander was going to basically ejaculate all over New York City or something like that. But Amazon said, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. Which is funny. It's funny that Amazon did step in and say, okay, come on, calm down. We can't do that. Another theme that comes up, which is really, really interesting, is this this notion of compound V and how there's this kind of side plot where A-Train, played by Jesse T. Usher, is worried that he's no longer that he's aging out, that he's not going to be the fastest man on Earth anymore.
Yeah.
So he's in a race with another up-and-coming superhero, and basically he takes this compound V as a performance enhancer to beat him in the race. But the compound V, they kind of become addicted to it, and it sends them into like I don't know, how would you describe it? Roid rage, yeah.
Yeah.
But like roid rage, and allegedly at the beginning of the show, when he obliterates Huey's girlfriend, it's because he is on Compound V and he's trying to get more of it. I feel like Compound V was like symbolism for like fame and like that chasing the dragon of like popularity and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And, oh man, it was so crazy how people will do anything, they'll become anything to chase that rush, you know? But it's in like that celebrity thing, that through that celebrity lens where like they need to keep their popularity, they need to maintain their image, they need to do all this intense stuff just to stay where they are.
Yeah, it was like what's her name? Sharon Stone in Catwoman.
Yeah, it was. It really, really was. Where she's taking the what was the name of that cream? Yeah.
Yeah.
Aaron, did that resonate with you in terms of like when you look at Hollywood today, like does it not feel like there could be such a thing as Compound V out there?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
But this is what I will say about the show. Even though it has all these cool, unique ideas, it takes shots at things that are going on like in the real world right now, takes shots at other superhero genres and all that. The thing that I liked about this show the most, and that's like whenever you watch say Avengers or even any of the Justice League stuff, it's always like there are these human beings who have godlike powers, right?
Yeah.
And these people are like, they at any moment they could go as psycho and like obliterate like millions and millions of people, but they don't, because they take pity on the humans and they want to like rescue them and help them be better. And so it's almost like superheroes have to lower themselves to like a human standard in order to like protect them, right? And so
Right.
and that's one kind of thing that goes on in the whole like North American superhero genre. In this movie, it's like, no, the superheroes are a bunch of cunts, and it's like the humans are like, it shows like the human drive, the human like won't take BS from anyone, and like you can't hold us down, and it elevates us as like a human race. And I'm always pro-human. Like, I'm always on the human side of, like, raising up and we can defeat, like, whatever corporation, religious, like, tyranny that's going on. And I think for me, that was probably, like, my most favorite part of the show.
Just like in Battlefield Earth.
Yeah.
No, I was... Okay, this
exactly like that.
The whole evil corporation controlling everything is a very sci-fi trope. One thing I want to mention, this whole series, I didn't see this mentioned anywhere else, but this really reminded me of a young adult's book that I read. It's called Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. And it is about basically this cataclysmic event that happens on Earth that turns a bunch of people into superheroes, but they're evil and they're bad, and they end up kind of like... they basically overlord humanity. And there is a character in that called Steelheart who kills the main character's father, but in doing so, he ends up like shooting Steelheart and grazing his cheek with a bullet, and everyone sees that the God King bleeds, you know, quote unquote, that whole thing we talked about in 10,000 BC. And then they're like, oh, he can be killed. And so there's this secret underground group of ragtags who are trying to devise a way to take down the overlording superheroes. And that came out, I think, shortly after the comic series run for The Boys wrapped up. Now, the reason I mention this is it's a fun book. I do recommend it if you're into young adults and stuff. It's a super quick read, and it's a lot of fun. And it's obviously a lot more lighthearted than this, but very similar concept. There was also another young adults book called Renegades, which is more recent, but also deals with like the heroes of the bad guys and the bad guys of the heroes kind of thing. So my prediction is, because The Boys is such a hit, you're going to see a lot more shows that are subverting the superhero trope. I feel like there's a new trend coming, which almost makes me worry about like the next upcoming seasons of this show, because like if the comics are any indicator, it's going to get even more crazy. It's going to get even more disgusting and creepy and whatever else, right? But yeah, one thing I want, I just, because these things ebb and flow, right? There's a pattern. There's a creative idea, sparks popularity, becomes like global appeal, and then we kind of get sick of it, and then in comes the cynicism subversion take, and then the whole thing kind of resets and we start again. It's very cyclical in pop culture. And I think the era of cynicism towards superheroes in movies has begun, and it's begun in a big, big way with The Boys.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I would agree with that.
I feel like in kind of pulling this train into the station, the cast is unbelievable. I feel like everyone does a great job. Jennifer Esposito from Master of Disguise is in this as Susan Raynor. So that was kind of fun. As soon as she came on screen, I was like, hey, it's a Jennifer. couldn't help it. Yes. So some more ties to stuff we've done in the past. I always like to see that. I like to see those connective dots.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's always like 1 or 2 degrees away from in separation of a really bad movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I feel like The Boys sets a bar, and it's really gonna do wonders for Amazon as a streaming service. But I am curious about what this means for. I'm curious of what this means for everything. I really feel like Phase 4 for Marvel is going to be a rough ride. If this is the way people are going to start to feel, you know?
Yeah.
What do you
well,
think?
we're gonna find out right away here. I think it's exactly what you said. What needs to happen is studios and like corporations, they need to understand when to call it. To not like oversaturize things. And right now, I feel like there's an oversaturation in like the Marvel like universe.
Yeah,
and so like I think you're exactly right. Like it's gonna need to reset. I really hope with this series too that they don't try to stretch it out and keep making seasons. That they just maybe make 1 or 2 more. Well, they are made a second one already, but maybe a third season, and that's probably about it. Like I don't think you could stretch it out any longer than that.
Right.
And so I really hope that they don't like exactly what you said. Like they don't make this now just played out.
Yeah, because if I was, frick, man, I know this sounds dumb, but if I was in charge, I would have literally just gave this a one and done season and let it been this weird masterpiece. Because I feel like The Boys is like the 2019 equivalent of like Spaceballs or Scary Movie, where everyone had just kind of, a genre got played out and then someone came along and flipped it on its head, made everyone laugh. And that was that. But of course, the Scary Movies got out of control. And I just don't want to see the same thing happen to The Boys.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to like wrap up this 8-episode run. And it is only 8 episodes. That's worth noting too, because there is an element to this season where you're like, okay, I get it. You know? Like, as brilliant as it is, by the end of it, you're like, yep, I get it. I see what you're trying to say. Now, that's thematically speaking. Story speaking, there's a ton to do still. But thematically speaking, I'm just not sure where you go in season 2 to keep things interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see. we'll see pretty quick.
Yeah, we get to, in a couple of years, we could do another episode and of what our predictions and stuff are and where the state of Hollywood is now.
I'm going to be really interested in revisiting this episode in a year or something, re-listening to it and seeing if anything I said was relevant or if I'm just, on my soapbox. I don't know. Yeah. I rant a little bit sometimes, so we'll see.
Well, with that being said, I just this is the first time you and I have ever we stepped out of our wheelhouse there, and this series isn't bad, and it's critically acclaimed, and also it's not a movie, it's a series, right? And so for any of those listening out there, let us know what you thought of this episode, whether you like us doing this sort of thing, or if you think we should just stick to reviewing bad movies, which it's not really a big deal to us, but we thought we'd try something different here.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to do anything that really takes away from the spirit of our core show. But we do enjoy talking to each other about movies and shows and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, let us know. And if you're a fan of the show, please, we would really appreciate it if you help us grow. And the best way to do that is to rate our show and subscribe. And if you know anyone that you think might be a fan of the show, let them know about it, because we really want to grow our audience and grow the show. And
so if you like us, share us.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell the world about us. I don't know.
Yeah, tell the world. So you can get in contact with us through all our social medias. They're all in the show notes. And let us know what you thought of The Boys. We'd sure like to know what you thought of The Boys and what you think of all our Instagram memes about The Boys.
Yes.
So Aaron, if you were recommending The Boys to somebody, what would you say?
Okay, so for this show, I would recommend it to anyone who is sick of the superhero genre and wants a fresh take on it. I would say this show is for you. Also, anyone who is a fan of DC and Marvel, just for all the little Easter eggs that you will see in this show and the little references and jabs and everything that go on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you had to give it a score out of 10, actually, let's do out of 100, because I think this this is another departure for us. This doesn't actually have a Rotten Tomatoes score, quote unquote. So if you had to give it say a Metacritic or IMDb score, what would you give it out of 100?
Oh, okay. I would give it probably a 92.
Whoa, that's awesome.
I would put it up there.
Yeah, I probably would too. I would say probably high 80s.
Yeah.
It's a bit, how you say?
Dark.
I think it's a bit dark and morbid, and it's not exactly to my taste in that regard, but at the same time, it's so strong. It's so powerful. I've heard it compared to Paul Verhoeven movies like RoboCop or Starship Troopers, and it's subversion. If you're into that kind of thing, for sure.
Yeah, I like anarchy and I like things going absolutely insane, and so this show had a lot of that in for me, and so that's why it's that high up there for me, because it's just the show from start to finish was just absolute chaos.
Absolutely, yeah, and if you didn't realize it, listener, this same guy's responsible for Preacher. So if you're looking to fill the boys-shaped void in your heart before season 2 drops. Maybe check out Preacher. I haven't checked it out personally, but if you're looking for more of that same kind of tone, that's also from his brain. So yeah, give it a go. Let us know what you think of that too. Great. Awesome. Well, Aaron, thanks so much for talking The Boys with me.
Yes, that was awesome.
And I think our next episode will be a In Defense Of episode for sure. So yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Jesus, he gives the worst pep talks.
He really, really does.
Yo!